being the creator of something this massive, damn. What's going on, guys, and welcome to my review of Oppenheimer, the newly Christopher Nolan directed biopic epic thriller Oppenheimer. Based on the book American Prometheus, from what I understand, Oppenheimer follows the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the nuclear physicist and leader of the Manhattan Project, which led to the first ever nuclear bomb in World War II. So yes, this is based on a true story events, a very pivotal and crucial part of America's history. And first of all, guys, before we continue, I feel like I owe an explanation. I deeply apologize for being absent. I know I hadn't uploaded anything in a while. I've watched movies since then. I just never felt up to reviewing anything because I'm going through some personal issues. So when I say that I apologize, I deeply do apologize. I know I've said this before because I was absent once or twice before, but I can't promise anything that this will happen again. I'm just going through some issues now that's kind of prohibiting me from being on here. But saying all that aside, let's talk about Oppenheimer. So, rolling into this, I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was going to be something that's not going to necessarily be for me, but because it's Christopher Nolan, and I know that's kind of a double standard, but I like Christopher Nolan's work. I like most of what he's done in the past, especially with the Dark Knight trilogy. And I actually didn't mind Tenet either, which was his last one he did before Oppenheimer. But he's one of those filmmakers that hasn't really been making movies for me. He's gone on to do a lot of these historic type dramas that I'm not really that big of a fan of. I know a little bit of history, but I'm no history buff. I know enough of it, though. But for Oppenheimer, I knew what I was getting into. It's basically 99% dialogue. The positive side to that is because Christopher Nolan is who he is and is the type of filmmaker that he is, I actually didn't mind a whole great deal of it because the way the movie was presented, it was actually presented really well. The level of thrill and chills and just all-out tenseness of like how each scene was drawn out, just the way Christopher Nolan handles the way he writes and the way he directs. So much so to where for a 3-hour movie, this is a long-ass movie. It's a 3-hour movie without end credits, probably about 2 hours and 50 minutes. Still, because of the level of tenseness and just the style that Christopher Nolan brings on screen, it didn't really feel like a 3-hour movie. Despite all of its very hardcore character-driven and dialogue-driven ways, it didn't really feel like a full 3-hour movie. It felt more like maybe 2.5 hours at the most, which I know is not that much, but still, it didn't really feel as long as it actually was. But that's because just the style and just the way that the film was edited together, and you just know it's a Christopher Nolan movie because it's just one of those cinematic experiences. Yes, it's not going to be for everybody. Yes, there's hardly no action in it. They talk more about the bomb than actually showing it. It's just basically, it's a biopic. That's what it is, plain and simple. But it's not going to be for everybody. For history buffs and film nerds, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a nerd, but for film buffs like myself, history buffs and film buffs like myself, you'll have a good time with it. Of course, this is written. I've got to mention Cillian Murphy as the lead role of Oppenheimer. He was great. I thought he stole the show. You know, of all the other stuff that he's been in, you know, he was the Scarecrow in the Dark Knight trilogy, and he was the villain in Red Eye, which is basically the only other stuff that I've actually really seen him in. But I've seen those enough to know that in Oppenheimer, you see Oppenheimer. You don't see those other characters. You see Oppenheimer because he played it with such angst. He played it with such, dedication and devotion to this historic figure that he really should win an Oscar or something at the awards. Now, he has said before that he just takes on he doesn't take on projects for that. He doesn't want he doesn't do it for that type of glory. But he definitely deserves it for this. So if he doesn't win anything, I'll be amazingly shocked. I'll be very, very shocked if he doesn't win anything. Because the dedication and just the way he portrayed this character was top notch. He's one of those characters to where it showed in some scenes to where you see what's going on in his head, which is pretty messed up, while still maintaining a sense of sensibility and sanity to where anybody else you think would just drive them mad, just completely insane, because it showed certain things in this movie that, in his head, that it was pretty messed up to where anybody else would just go insane. But he played it with such loyalty and such dedication that, again, Cillian Murphy, he nailed this part. He nailed it at this part. So, top-notch, grade A to him. Not to mention, you get a bunch of assembled cast. This movie holds a really strong cast to where a lot of people shows up there who you didn't even realize that was in it, even from the trailers. You got Josh Hartnett, Florence Pugh, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey freaking Jr., Iron Man himself, which to me, this is Robert Downey Jr.'s best outside of the MCU, which is basically took over his whole career for over a decade. This is the best that he's actually done outside of the MCU if he's not playing in something like Due Date or The Judge or something like that. He actually nailed the part that he played in. He was probably in it like 60% of the time. Not a whole lot, but it was pretty cool seeing him. It was pretty cool seeing what he, contributed to this film. And like I said, all the other cast members, all the other, cameos, and just straight out people that you wouldn't even imagine being in a film like this, but that just goes to show you that a lot of people just wanted to work with Christopher Nolan. Apparently that's how high profile this guy is. So kudos for that. The way the movie was shot, it's kind of confusing in a way, but if you know your history, it won't be that confusing. Like I said, I know enough of it to understand what I was getting into. But some of the scenes, the way it was edited, pieced together, it can get a little confusing. Like there's some black and white scenes, and there's some, most of it was colored. But some of the black and white scenes, which kind of tells you there's like not time travel, but like time difference, time displaced scenes, which that's basically what those are. They jump back and forth, which I could see that being a negative on a lot of people's radar, but to me, I found it interesting. It's one of those where you really had to pay attention to just the overall concept of what this movie was bringing out, what this movie was telling. And to that, I thought it was pretty clever. Like, again, just the way it was edited, it just goes back to what I said about how good of a filmmaker Christopher Nolan is. Emily Blunt stole the show as Oppenheimer's wife. I thought she did an amazing job in the little screen time that Florence Pugh showed up in. I'm not just talking about certain scenes. I think she's a good actor, so get your mind out of the gutter for those of you who already seen it. Josh Hartnett. I wish that guy would just pop up in just about anything because I liked him ever since I saw him in Halloween H2O. He played the son of Jamie Lee Curtis's character in that. He played in The Faculty, Lucky Number 11. To this day, I don't understand why he disappeared for that short period of time. After Lucky Number 11, I guess that one did so poorly that it just pretty much killed his career there for a little while. But he's awesome. I always liked him. So he's popping up a lot here lately, and I'm grateful for that. Like I said, everybody else did just a top-notch job. And it's just one of those stories to where in your everyday life, and knowing that this actually happened is kind of scary. It's kind of terrifying in a way, knowing that something like this could actually happen. It actually did happen in like certain parts of the world. And it's just one of those to where, okay, you're doing your everyday life and you're dealing with your own problems of life and you don't never think about something that grand, something that dark happening until it happens, until it's just over in a flash. And it's just something to really think about. I know that's not the way to live, but it's reality. It's there. It happened. It's in existence. I'm not trying to be a downer here, but I'm just saying. Moving on to my negatives, and going back to what I said at the beginning of this review, this is something that's just not really for me. You know, Christopher Nolan, he's a really great filmmaker. I really respect his dedication and his work all around, but he just hasn't been making that much movies for me. Ever since the Dark Knight, trilogy, he's been making a lot of these biopic history thriller type movies, which is fine, whatever works for him. I know all these filmmakers just want to stretch their legs and just do other things, and I deeply respect that, I do, but it's not something for me. With Oppenheimer, as much as I enjoyed the story and the tensity and just all around how it was pieced together and the performances of all the actors, it's just not something for me, which brings me to the rewatch value. It's not something that I'm going to be rewatching constantly. It's probably going to be something that I'll watch once more with my family who didn't go to see it. Whenever it comes out on Redbox, I'll rent it, watch it, have a good time with them, and then move on. That's it. It's just not one of those grand, epic spectacles that everybody's kind of making it out to be already. If you like it that much, then all power to you. But it's just not for me. That's a me thing. It's not for me. Rolling into it, I expected as much. I expected it to be 99% dialogue. That's what I've always heard from every YouTuber, every reviewer out there leading up to watching this. I knew what I was getting into. Again, it's just not for me. It's just not something that I'll watch constantly, like I do most every other movie that I watch. And there's a bad trend that goes on with the sound effects, to where some of the dialogue is drowned out by a lot of the bass sounds and just the loud background music. Ever since The Dark Knight Rises, that's been an ongoing trend. And I would have understood it if it was like maybe one movie or two, but it just keeps on occurring to where you're trying to hear the dialogue and you miss a certain amount of it, to where something happens later on that was consistent and that was related to what was said before, and you have no idea what the hell did I just miss, because you couldn't hear what was going on. And that seems to be an ongoing bad trend with just about every single one of Nolan's movies. Ever since The Dark Knight Rises, it's just been that, and I don't understand that. I don't know why it's continuing to happen, whether it's the theater's fault or just the filmmakers just doing that intentionally, which I don't understand why they would be doing that intentionally, because if you're trying to hear dialogue, you're trying to hear it. You're trying to catch every word so you can follow along, and that's just not been happening with a lot of people that I've noticed. And whenever I watched it, I could definitely see it. So I don't know. I don't know what that's all about, but it is what it is. But despite all that, Oppenheimer was a pretty good time. For history buffs and for movie buffs in general, like myself, movie fans in general, you'll still have a good time with it. You'll definitely have fun with it, and even though it might not be your sort of thing, just the performances all around and just the way the movie looks and the way the movie was shot, and just knowing that it's Christopher Nolan, a great storyteller within himself, it's still something that you'll enjoy just for those facts alone. It's a happy accident. So Oppenheimer, what was your thoughts on it? Are you a fan of this type of genre? Have you seen this yet? Are you somebody that can tolerate the amount of dialogue that's in a film like this? Are you somebody that is a history buff that appreciates this type of genre? Are you a fan of what Cillian Murphy did with this character? Or are you somebody that just prefers anything else entirely? Leave me a comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing, as always. And I will see you on the next one, whatever it may be. No. 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 Whoop, 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 whoop.